Listen, it all comes down to one word, your thoughts. Everyone overlooks this part because technically thoughts aren't sinful. You don't get sin just for thinking of doing something haram or even having the desire to do something haram. So it seems like something you could ignore, but really when you look deeper, you'll see there's a massive connection between the sin and actually the thought that comes before it. And you probably already understand this because no one just does a sin out of nowhere. No one's just spontaneously doing haram things. What happens is you have a thought and you have a desire that comes before it. And the important thing to understand is that these desires are caused by thoughts. Every single desire you have at first came as a passing thought, maybe a thought that shaitan implanted into your ears. Then that thought basically grows into a desire and it keeps getting bigger and bigger until eventually the desire is so strong that you're just going to commit the sin. And everyone's been through this same exact experience. I mean, let's say, for example, we're talking about listening to music. And let's say you have this song in your head that keeps playing that you really like. Maybe it's your favorite song. That thought and that constant replaying in your head of that song is going to build that desire. Eventually, it's going to be practically impossible to not listen to that song because you just had it on your mind so long that it became too strong of a desire. If you now go about your entire day, an entire week, replaying in your head songs that you like, then you could have all the discipline in the world, but at the end of the day, you're kind of always fighting an uphill battle of resistance. You're probably never going to be able to break that addiction or break that sin. But now I want you to think of it in somewhat of a different light. Instead of having discipline against the sin itself, against doing the action, have discipline earlier, meaning have discipline against your mind and your thoughts. Basically, cut out that thought before it becomes a desire, and of course, before it becomes an actual action and a sin. Now, I know it seems like I might be talking a lot, but to be honest, this just boils down to control your mind. A lot of people live their whole life without realizing this, but the strongest tool you have is your mind, and technically you have full control of it. I mean, right now, if I tell you to think of something, you can control your mind and literally, physically think about that thing. If I tell you to think about something haram, you could literally use your mind to think about it. Way too much people want flashy advice that maybe sounds nice on paper, but at the end of the day, you have to realize, like, you could literally control your mind. You could control your thoughts, and that's probably the hardest thing to do because it takes so much discipline. Most of your day is completely unconscious. But if you have that power, why not use it? It's probably the strongest tool you have in your entire life. And the beautiful thing is it also works in reverse. You can control your thoughts to get desires about doing good things. Instead of getting a desire to do sin, you could get the desire to read Quran. It all just works on the simple principle that your thoughts become your desires. The things that you linger on in your head, maybe you get a passing thought and something about it inspires you or something about it sparks a feeling. That feeling turns into an action. So literally just start forcing yourself to think of, maybe instead of a sin or something haram, something positive that you're working towards. Maybe it's like a passion project, maybe it's making YouTube videos like I do, or maybe it's also something Islamic like reading Quran. And here's a tip with that. I want you to find something that sparks an emotion or inspiration. Basically, we humans always work off a mental image. I have a mental image in my head of who I want to be maybe in 5 years. Jeff Bezos, who made Amazon, had a mental image of what that company, what that business Amazon was going to look like. And using that mental image, he gained the inspiration and ideation to actually put it into action. So you need to find your mental image, that mental image in your head that you feel like you're constantly working towards, that gives you emotion and that gives you inspiration. Now, yeah, I get this advice might seem like a little esoteric or ambiguous, but honestly, it's one of the biggest pieces of advice you could give is to start controlling your mind and analyzing your own thoughts, because you'll realize that so much of your life is just dependent on what you think and how you feel. Your life will absolutely change once you start being critical of yourself and having control of your own mind and thoughts. And at the end of the day, your mind is basically all you have control of in this life. That's all I have for this video. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh.